Welcome to the Fresh Squeeze podcast. We are back again this week, and we've got Omega Lion with us today, and long-winded topic is taking the weekend off. So I was just mentioning to Omega Lion here that I saw this really cool, I think it's cool, counterpoints episode that was essentially between a revolutionary communist in Great Britain and a multimillionaire who owns, essentially like this mega plumbing organization in, I'm assuming, the UK. And while we're not going to watch the entire video, we're going to watch kind of a second of it or a section of it here because I feel like it very closely encapsulates what we are seeing in society and like what the core issue is essentially when you see this videos, it's like on the left hand side we are seeing somebody there that is strictly, we essentially need to abolish profit seeking, need to abolish capitalism. And on the right hand side is, we not only do we have capitalism and they're pro-capitalism, they want more capitalism to try to fix the ills of society. And just keep in mind, when they're talking about their politics, this is Great Britain, but really, this is really not much different than the United States. We have, obviously, in the case of the United States, people who have just absurd, insane levels of wealth, and they are blaming essentially either the government itself for not doing XYZ to fix the economy. They are saying that we need essentially more capitalism. Let's just jump into it, and we'll comment on things as it goes by. So it starts they've already been discussing, and it starts with the person in the middle, the mediator, asking a question here.
Fiona, do you think if Charlie's saying he hasn't got it wrong, capitalism has been blamed perhaps for a host of perceived problems, even if they aren't the root cause of them? I mean, young people are disgruntled by the current system. They say it's broken, but is capitalism really the root cause of all those issues? I mean, Charlie's arguing it isn't. Is that just the brush that it's being painted with? And that's why we're seeing this groundswell at the moment.
Yeah, I think capitalism is the source of the problems in people's lives because fundamentally it's down to how the economy is organized, right? We agree, obviously, we live in a capitalist system where production is done on the basis of profit and not need. That is what drives capitalism forward, right? The reason that as a boss, you're investing in certain things is in order for you to make a profit. You're not doing it just out of the goodness of your heart. You're looking to make profits, right? And it's that drive to profit which means that we then live in a very unbalanced economy where, as I said earlier, you have things like the NHS, education, these really important sectors are underfunded and right now are failing because under the laws of the capitalist system, it's not useful for them to invest in that. Even though if you were thinking about it from a long-term perspective for capitalism, you'd want a healthy, educated workforce. But that's a separate question. I can't talk about the logic of the capitalist class in 2025, which seems to have gone out the window.
So that's a really good point. It's just like the thing that doesn't make sense as far as, even the US capitalist system is that, these things that the like RFK Jr. is doing and trying to push these anti-vaccine narratives and things like that, it really doesn't make sense even from a capitalist perspective in the long term, because if you think about it, if you have a sick and unhealthy workforce, then who exactly is going to buy all of the things, right? It's almost like it's something more sinister than that. Maybe they think something to the effect of, well, if everything's automated and we essentially don't need workers anymore, then we just want to kill them off, as many off as possible, or they just are literally just saying, okay, well, you guys are on your own. We're going to go have our, billionaire utopia somewhere with a bunch of butler robots, and you guys can just kind of fend for yourselves. But it's just like a very bizarre behavior to not want to spend into a system to ensure that your, workers and your employees and things like that are taken care of.
Some of you may die, but it's a risk I'm willing to take.
Right.
But the point is this: I think young people today can see that it's the system as a whole that is the source of their problems. It's not just one boss who's particularly nasty or particularly mean, which is a good thing, I would say. That it's not about individuals; it's about the way in which this economy is organized, and people want, and they want an alternative to that, and a radical alternative to that as well. It's very hard when your life and the life of your friends and your colleagues is getting harder and harder. Meanwhile, we can see that the life of the super rich is getting better, and that you can't hide that in society, that as the rich get richer, the rest of us are getting poorer. That's a fact of life under capitalism today. And so what else would people blame their problems on? Well, I guess Charlie would say people aren't working hard enough, but I think if you're a nurse in the NHS struggling to get by because your ward doesn't have enough doctors, doesn't have enough staff, there's loads of patients coming in, the idea that you should just work harder to make your life better, I think it's an insult, and not just to NHS staff.
Yeah, that's not exactly what I meant, and
Oh,
you know
Jason, if you
that.
could pause that for a
use the
second.
Okay. What's
Yeah,
up?
so I agree with her statement saying that it is an insult to the working class just to work harder. I don't know how many times, and not only is it an insult, that is a very, it's almost jargon at that point.
Right.
Because that, I don't know how many times I have heard somebody say, we're not working hard enough, work harder, do this, do that. Well, that's the thing. People have. And I have seen it in the jobs that I have worked at, and they have worked to the point where they're stretched out thin, and then they ended up walking out, or they put their 2 weeks notice in. I mean, um, so and there was something she said about just the workforce in general. While I get what she's saying, that it's not just when it comes to a nasty boss. I do also think that a work culture and workforce like environment does play a factor as to people are why people struggle. Because the thing is, as someone who is in between jobs right now, to put it simply, um I lost my job because of toxicity and because of an illegitimate investigation that I was accused of something that I had said or done. And apparently there was an investigation which I was never questioned. I've had nothing of me was I had zero say, zero opportunity for defense, nothing. They just straight up just told me that I was accused of this. I'm fired. And then I've lost my insurance immediately, and then all my PTO that occurred, gone. So I think that's more or less of a minor cog in the big machine of the capitalist issue. Um, but but I prattle along with that. Um, but yeah, just the work harder thing. I keep seeing that, and I keep seeing that, and I don't understand how people can still cling on to that response when people bring up, the inequity and like you said, it's very unbalanced. I agree. And then I'm just going based off of just what I am seeing. Like you said, the rich are getting richer. Well, let's think from 2020 to 2025. Let's see. So what's happened? Well, we had a pandemic that lasted about 2.5 years, and then what have we seen during the pandemic? Let's see. The ultra wealthy companies that were at risk of going bankrupt got corporate bailouts, which they were supposed to pay back, and last I heard, they never did. But here we are. Number two, the people that were in the in the working class and had their jobs either laid off, terminated, whatever, because of the lockdowns and the restrictions, because of the viral outbreak. Well, what support did they get? Well, some got some support, while some got very little to none. And as somebody who has been affected by this, going like I was a senior in my junior in my excuse me, my undergrad years. I did not get a graduation ceremony until like later in the summer. I did not get any form of support from for like, for the fact that I had to literally pack up my stuff for my dorm earlier and not finish a semester in person. And not to mention I had an internship that I was supposed to have, that was part of my my degree requirements. Well, they did. I mean, my advisor did help me get the credit filled, so that way I was eligible to still graduate. But however, I still was expected, my like what I had to pay in student loans, that didn't change. The only relief I've ever gotten was actually from the college themselves. They actually gave us FERPA relief funding that they have for their students, and that was strictly the college. Like anything government, state, whatever. Nope, that was 100% on the college. So there you go, right there. And number three, the biggest one that pisses me off the most is that which I kind of find it hard to believe that the companies even needed bailouts, given that they've made record profits
Yeah.
within the pandemic. So that right there in itself is contradictory to why are they needing bailouts when they literally just, when we've had statistics like post pandemic stating that a lot of these corporations had made record profits
So I was just
because
going
that
to
because
mention something on that. So in the past year alone, the top 1% have seen their wealth increase by $4 trillion. And since 2020, the top 1% have added $15 trillion to their wealth, representing approximately a 49% increase. So essentially, that is the problem. That, when we're talking about um, the amount of wealth that exists within the country, and these few people have the majority of that wealth, it causes issues for literally everybody. And I'm just saying, like, since 2020, um, it says, according to Oxfam's analysis, the richest 1% captured nearly two-thirds of all new wealth worth, $42 trillion created since 2020, amassing 26 trillion, while the bottom 99% collected just 16 trillion. So the math is, and it's in black and white. That is the problem. Like when I mentioned in another episode that it didn't make any sense whatsoever to be bitching about
Mhm.
people who are coming across the border, and it literally, you could take that entire class of people, or category of people out of the equation when assessing who's getting the most money and who's getting the least amount of money, and it wouldn't even move like a decimal point. That's what I mean. We're talking about trillions of dollars here, many, many multiples of trillions of dollars here, that's going to essentially like 1,000 people or less, right? It's somewhere around like 1,000 to 2,000 people in the world get the vast majority of the money. And when
And then we also have Elon Musk, who's about to become, from this is last what I've heard. My information could be outdated now. And I want to follow on Elon Musk anyways. But last I heard, he is projected to become the world's first trillionaire.
right,
Yeah.
and
So
it's all
yeah,
propped up on BS too. It's like, Tesla hasn't been in the green, I don't think, ever in its entire You know, the amount of money that Tesla gets as a company does not equal the amount of profit that it makes. You know, there's tons of investment into it. There's very, very little profit in comparison to that. And that's true, you know, for, you know, the AI companies as well. That's true for, well, I'm not sure that it would be true for NVIDIA. I'm sure there's a bunch of bloatedness in NVIDIA's evaluate or you know valuation because NVIDIA just in and of itself is $5 trillion, which means just that one single company has more wealth than every single other country in the world besides the United States and China. So that's like the levels of absurd wealth difference that we're talking about here. And you know, it just drives me nuts that like this guy over here on the right in this video is trying to say anything about like people not going to work. You could have essentially like and I guess to bring it back to the United States because he's obviously talking about Great Britain, um,
Right.
which in this video, by the way, she points out that she did some research on him and he was literally moving out of Great Britain to try to avoid taxes. So, so like, this is what
Oh
this
my
type of guy
God.
is, right? This like wants to bitch and complain about people not working, but he's just going to go move his whole self out of a country to keep from you know paying any taxes or you know to pay fewer taxes, which he said something like in his whole lifetime he's paid 100 million pounds of taxes. Whatever, bro. You obviously have enough money. You literally sold a company for 150 million dollars. You're going to be okay. But it's just kind of bizarre that they would even mention these people as like being even close to moving the needle on inflation or you know the wealth gap or anything like that, which is what actually causes all of these issues. But I wanted to watch a little bit more of this here.
Yeah, I
Term
just wanted to comment
NHS a
on that
lot
because that
on
was that yeah, because those are some good points she made. It's just that I do think that capitalism also does have an impact of just how work culture in
Yeah.
the US is it's it's look, I mean, I know I'm still young. I've been in the workforce since I was 16, because I got my first job when I was 16. But however, there are certain employers that I've worked for that I have had long tenure with versus some others that I did not. And it shows. And that was in and all of the and pretty much for except for one, um the reasons why I was either A, terminated, or B, I left on my own merits was because of just the toxicity and the things that were being said and done to employees, not limiting to myself here, that I did not agree with, as well as those who were that involved clients, like with just my previous job. Um, there was a doctor and a nurse that were making appointments behind our backs and not and failed to inform me who that this appointment was made, and I was simply trying to find out why this appointment was made, and we were not just why was I not informed of this, because they only told me like 2 days in advance, and I had to schedule around that. And the nurse decided to get snippy with me because I was questioning her, and then she complained to my higher ups that I was being rude and disrespectful, and then boom, they took her side immediately and just threw me under the bus. So yeah, but the thing
Yeah, I mean
is,
that
it's
stuff happens
yeah,
all the
it's
time.
yeah, and
Unfortunately.
yeah, and that shit, yeah, and well, and it was a for-profit company, so yeah, there you go. That should have been my first clue right there. But anyhow, yeah, and it is, and I feel that it is. I also argue that work, that just overall work culture and not great and unprofessional, hostile work environments do attribute to why people are struggling too, because it's just that. I mean, a lot of these companies just look at employees as pawns, and they're
Right.
expendable, and they
Right.
shouldn't be.
Yeah, and I mean, the place that I worked at prior to place I work at now, they literally just laid some lady off just because another candidate came around that they really wanted instead of her, and it's just kind of ridiculous that that could be the thing that, you know. And I mean, the thing that's also ridiculous about that is there's almost always plenty of work, so there's no reason why they couldn't have had both employees, but because that other employee, you know, had you know, a bigger resume or whatever, they're just like, well, sorry about your luck. I guess you're just going to have to pack things up and head on. And I've seen people get screwed over on a bunch of trumped up charges of, oh, we're just going to nitpick this person rather than, you know, anybody else just because we want to piss them off and get them to leave.
Or put them on a pit plan, which is
Right.
what they did to me.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
I'm just going to say all of this stuff is something that employers shouldn't even be able to do. Employers shouldn't even be able to, um, you know, do a urinalysis before, you know, you know, go over and get a job, unless the job was like DOT or you're like in a, you know, driving or something like that.
Mhm.
They shouldn't be able to be doing like a background check and all this other crap. It's ridiculous. It's just a level of control that they're going to put in place to go over and protect their bottom line instead of taking
Yep.
chance on people. You know, in the 1970s and earlier, a lot of places would take chances on people. They'd go over and, you know, well, you don't have a college degree. You know, in fact, my father-in-law, I don't think he has a college degree and he works as an engineer. It's because they took a chance on him. And in that case, it sounds like they, you know, were, you know, lucrative in that exchange there. And that just doesn't happen anymore. You know, they trump up all these or prop up all of these qualifications that are needed for a job when
Mhm.
they don't really need that many qualifications for the job. They just want to get like the absolute tip top uh, person for the job rather than somebody who might have to learn for a year. And it's just it's ridiculous that that should be the case. It's like just
They,
hire
yeah.
15% or 20% more people than what you need, and you know the only reason they're not doing that is because of profit, right? If the workers were taking care of that place, they'd have, you know, way more employees than is the bare bones minimum of what needs to operate on, you know, for that facility or whatever it was. And guess what? People probably have to work like a quarter of the time of what they normally work for the same money. You know what I mean? And this is really what
Mhm.
we're talking about here. But I want to listen to a little bit what this
Right.
guy over here says. This
Yeah.
what is he? He's almost kind of like he's like a Timu Sting the
On the
He's got
sympathy
some
vote.
crazy
You
hair.
said about bosses, they make profit, as if it's a bad word. I mean, that's why you open a business for profit. And again, many people benefit from that. But, you know, more, of course, we need more money into the NHS. But the only way you're going to get that is more capitalism, more people creating wealth, more people contributing into society, but instead of draining society. So, you know, I feel that, you know, when you talk about, you know, profits, you say it as if it's a bad word. I mean, what bit of rich makes you most annoyed? The word rich. What bit of that annoys you the most?
What annoys? I don't understand the question.
And
Sorry.
look, I know it's not a difficult question, but you seem to be very annoyed by the word rich. Why does that annoy you?
Yeah. Well, I'm a communist. I'm opposed to the super rich hoarding all of the wealth in society. And you're saying, oh, the way to save the NHS is more capitalism. What that means today in Britain is privatization, because some people can see that the NHS is falling apart, and you've
So just for our American viewers, the NHS is the National Health System, I think, and it's essentially their universal health care in Great Britain. So that's just if you didn't know
Create
what they
more wealth.
right.
You've got American companies in particular that are going in and they've already begun privatizing different aspects of the NHS, which means that it's going to be harder for people to get the healthcare that they need. We're going to have to start paying for certain aspects of healthcare.
Yeah,
Do you think that's going to make
true.
do you
But
think that's going to make people
you
in
can't blame
Britain
bosses
more
and job
healthy?
creators because of that. You've got to blame the government for the system that they're not
Yeah.
running correctly. I mean,
Point finger
you
at the
can't,
system.
why keep blaming successful people
Which
that
that's
have
true. It is a
created
problem with the
jobs, that
system.
are training people, that are putting money back in?
It is a problem with the system, but not for the reason he's saying. He's saying it's just poorly
He's right for the
managed.
wrong reasons.
And it's like
Yeah, he's right for the wrong reasons.
what she's saying is essentially um, that the system's the problem because it's essentially working as designed. And, you know, capitalism, it keeps people out on the street as a function of capitalism, right? To scare the worker into wanting to maintain a job for as low pay as possible because they think, man, I don't want that to be me out on the street, right? And it's while maybe that guy in particular, Mr. Timu Sting, maybe he specifically doesn't think that, but once again, we're judging the system based on its outcome. And the outcome is no matter what you do in the system of capitalism, you're going to have homeless people, and you're going to eventually have imperialism, and you're going to eventually, in the long term, have fascism when the ruling class is threatened. And that's where the core issue is. It's not just this guy. It's not that this guy in particular, does bad things necessarily to his employees, even though no matter what, he is exploiting them for his own profit. But, she's going to explain that here real quick. But that's where he just does not understand. He, internalizes capitalism as, himself. He's almost like...
I like how he okay, because I like how he was trying to nitpick her question when he said that he claims that she said that the very word rich annoys her, which is completely not what that is totally
Right.
not what she was insinuating at all. It's not about the word or the meaning of the word. It's the fact that it's how the system is literally being manipulated and being weaponized for the ruling class to have absolute power over anything and everything, while those who are not within that tax within that bracket get the exact opposite: no power, no say, no nothing, and they have no choice but to either obey or be out on the streets. That is and yeah, I never and I mean, yeah, if I was in her shoes, I'd be like, what are you trying to ask
Right.
me exactly? Because I mean, I understand his question, but I was like, my question for him is, are you understanding what she is saying, or are you just hearing what you want to hear?
Right. And one thing that you just brought up there, um, that's a really good point because specifically when I say I'm anti-capitalist, it's because I am pro democracy, more so than what a capitalist would be. A capitalist or capitalism inherently is anti-democratic because, as you said, we do not have a say in the economy. We don't get to say how many workers get hired for a specific role. We don't get to say how much of this product are we allowed to, or are we going to make. We don't get to say who are we selling this product to. We don't get to say how much of the product are we going to make, or even what is the product that we're making. We don't get any of those says whatsoever. That's all given to a few select people, and most importantly, the millionaires and billionaires who essentially are the CEOs or the owners of these companies or whatnot. So it's kind of wild that he keeps doing these kind of more baby brained arguments about, well, what don't you like about rich or whatever, is it's like, we're not talking about just specifically rich. We're talking about much more complex ideas here, like literally democracy being thwarted by people who have way too much money and who are literally sending our money overseas to go kill kids in Gaza and stuff. You know, just absurd, insane, and unneeded levels of wealth. That's what we're talking about. We're not just talking about a person having a couple $1,000,000, right? I, I'm not like saying that if a guy's got a couple $1,000,000 that automatically he's necessarily a capitalist. Maybe he has a really niche and necessary skill for a specific job. And a lot of people assume that if we had a democratic workplace, that everybody would be getting paid the same dollars equally or whatever. And that's not necessarily the case. There's a wide range of ways that you could run a system like that. But we can't even get to the point of saying this system is trash. Let's go put together a system in which people get, paid or compensated equally. We're still in, no, I'm the guy that, 30 years ago decided to open a business for plumbing, and just by that metric and, continuing to buy stock options, I just get more say than anybody else on this particular subject. That's just should not be the way that it works. We need democracy in the workplace.
Into society, and they're not all greedy people. I mean, I've probably given more money away than probably what you, I don't know, earned, kind of thing. So I just feel that
you've got a lot more to give.
I'll be honest. Well, but you laugh as if it's a joke, but it's obviously not a joke, because a lot of youngsters' future is at stake here, and we need to resolve the problem. And the way to resolve the problem is to get people into the workplace and look after them and make sure they get a good living, and we all contribute.
So,
Okay,
Charlie,
pause for a
saying that
second
if
there.
people
Pause.
just
Hold on. Whoa. You, sir, are fucking wrong. You are hella wrong. You clearly do not know what Gen Zs and not to mention Gen Alpha is going to be dealing with here in the near fucking future. Don't sit there and talk to her, as well as tell the entire audience here viewing this broadcast, saying that your guys' future is in danger. We fucking know, dude. We've known this for a long fucking time, brother. We have known that for a long time. The problem is we have vocalized this in many ways that in every way that we could imagine, using technology, using whatever that we could possibly get our hands on that didn't cost us an arm and a leg, because let's face it, Gen Z, yeah, name a Gen Z who is an ultra wealthy millionaire. I would like to meet this Gen Z that didn't get it inherited, because that's another problem. Those who are in the Gen Z or the millennial era period of of the timeline, wherever you want to call that, the only reason why they would have such a amount of wealth occurred is because it was inherited. As a matter of fact, me and my stepfather have talked about this a couple of days ago, and then it also is affecting the housing market too. People are getting all of these houses because their grandparents or their parents bought them for like way less amount of money, and now for what they so houses that costed them back then, like let's say like 16 grand, just yeah, 16 grand, just so just for the sake of the topic, a house that would have cost 16 grand, like let's say 1980s 1970s, now costs in the 21st century almost are on average $200,000. And some of these houses definitely are not worth even the comma of what they're asking for. And as someone who has moved into a new house, about maybe 2 years ago, and house hunting, me and my mom have seen so many houses that look like absolute dog shit. The foundation was shifting. The neighborhood was in a really shitty place. The some of the windows are like made in like the 60s, and they're so paper thin that they're not energy efficient, which would cost more money to have the house heated or cooled. And you're asking for money like it's some big freaking contemporary modern masterpiece of a home. And you want to sit there and tell us that we just need more people in the workplace? Okay, all right, okay. Let's say that there were people. Okay, let's say that was a problem. Okay, well, guess what, buddy? I know people long-winded who himself has stated he's working two freaking jobs and could barely get by. You want to sit there and tell us that we need more people in the workplace? You really are going to sit there and use that?
I mean, they're trying
Shut
to
the hell up.
reduce the amount of people in the workplace. So, like, it
Exactly.
just
Yeah,
makes
and the
no
AI
sense what he's
takeover.
saying.
Amazon just announced they're going to be there with by 2020 by 2033, they're going to have like 60% of their workforce AI,
Yeah.
if not
One
more.
one thing I wanted to say here is that the distinction between millionaires and billionaires. So 79% of millionaires had no inheritance at all, and only 3% inherited more than $1 million from their parents, which that's most most people's parents don't have $1 million. So I'll take
Fuck
that with a
no.
grain of salt. But there was not really any statistics about Gen Z, but there's only 60 or 600,000 millennial millionaires, and that accounts for, essentially any young millionaires under the age of 35 make up less than 5% of the total millionaire population. But as far as billionaires with a B, there are none.
Hmm.
There literally are no millennial or Gen Z billionaires that did not inherit the money, that are essentially a self made billionaire. That just doesn't exist.
Well, hell, well, some of these high-profile ones even are not even self-made billionaires, like Donald Trump, Elon Musk.
Right,
They're not self-made. It was given to them because their predecessors had the wealth.
right,
So yeah, yeah. Even these high-profile ones that we hear about all the time, they even claim that, and it's and not just limited to those two, but they're prime examples because a lot of people will argue, well, they're self-made though. No, they are not. In fact, Trump especially has stated this, that he started at the bottom of his father's tower with a small loan of small loan of $1 million.
right,
Really? And you really think that he and you really think that he is the best candidate? Sorry to get political here. I know that's a little bit of a rabbit hole, but just think about this, our viewers. If you really want to elect somebody that truly wants to be a representative for the average American citizen, you really think somebody that literally will tell you that grew up in a freaking gigantic mansion and worked in his own daddy's tower, who has millions upon billions of dollars, and then his first job was being on the bottom floor of a tower and given a loan of $1 million. I have yet I've met many people throughout my career in college and traveling the United States, and hopefully I would like to leave the country at least once. But with that said, I have yet to meet somebody that says, "Oh yeah, my dad loaned me a freaking lump sum of money to start my own business or do this and do that." In fact, I hear no, in fact, I'm hearing quite the opposite, if anything, that they're taking from their kids, if let alone not supporting them, is what I'm hearing. He has zero credibility to call himself to call himself a representative for the American people, let alone understand what the average American deals with on a daily basis. No daily American lives, or the average American lives in a freaking mansion, or has parents that own ultra big enterprises and get a portion of inheritance from that. No, that is not the typical American. Hell no.
right.
In fact, I've yet to meet somebody that was like that. I've yet to meet somebody in person that is like that. I've yet to. In fact, I even know some people that do work in businesses that their parents own, and they are nowhere near that rich. Some of them even still struggle to pay for their damn bills.
Let's check
So
some more of
my
this.
point is, so yeah, so my point is, this guy here, yeah, no, he clearly he's no different from the billionaires that we have here in the United States. He is no different. He is zero, there's no difference. No difference whatsoever. He clearly does not understand what it's like to be the little guy. He has no idea how hard it is, how much harder it has become, and how much more harder it's going to get within the next decade to get a job with the AI revolution. That they're making the qualifications harder, and they're upping the qualifications and upping the ante, and that makes people who don't have these qualifications, because a lot of times they don't have the resources to pay for that kind of training and to pay for that kind of education to get these certifications. So that just makes it even harder.
Right.
So yeah, I just that has been the most like just like talking with your ass statement I've ever heard.
Work harder, they'll be able to get ahead.
No, I never said that. I think it'd be a good start if people just worked. We've got a lot of people that are milking the system, but you're going like that as if I'm talking rubbish. I know. I mean, we know there's many people that are on the benefit system that don't need to be. Anybody that needs to be with mental health issues, general disabilities, or caring for people, we should give them all the help possible. But the lazy people that can work and won't work, they're the ones that are causing the problem.
Fiona, are they? I mean, if those people were in the workforce contributing taxes, wouldn't that make things a bit better off?
Of course, people want to work. People want to work. In fact, youth unemployment is growing at the moment. In Britain at the moment, youth unemployment is about 12%. And that's also because what you have, especially for young people when they graduate university, I read something recently that showed loads of the jobs that people apply to on Indeed, they're not even real jobs. It's like AI harvesting data, right? And for like tens of thousands of jobs, there's like 1 million applicants because people are desperately searching for work. The idea that the problems of young people not right now is the result of them being lazy. As I said at the beginning, I think it's really out of touch with the mood and the anxiety that young people have. I mean, you brushing this off, and it's not just you, it's other media commentators about young people. It's just mental health. It's all made up. Gen Z, they don't want to work hard. I think it's out of touch with the mood, and it's a contempt, actually. And by the way, that contempt is why people don't like the rich, as you put it, or you said why are you so annoyed at the rich? Why are you so annoyed at successful people? It's because the way in which you patronize people into believing that if everyone just worked a bit harder, they could get ahead in the system. And I'm telling you, everyone is working very hard and they're not getting ahead.
Well, they're not.
Because of the system
they're not.
rigged in the way that it
Clearly they're not.
The fuck they aren't. The fuck they aren't. Like I stated before,
look.
one of our like I said, Long-Winded has stated in previous episodes that he works multiple jobs too, and he has kids to take care of too, and he can barely get ahead. That is a load of bullshit. As a matter of fact, I know a couple people that I went to college with and I graduated with have to work multiple jobs just so they can have a roof over their head. And not to mention, I have seen certain articles on social media that now certain restaurants and stores are doing like separate payment methods just so people have an opportunity to afford to eat instead of paying it all at once. Are you kidding me right now, dude? You like, oh my god! Just the cognitive dissonance and the freaking gaslighting of this guy
Right.
is astounding. It's astounding. Are you serious right now, my guy? Are you kidding me? Dude, last I heard there was a statistic showing that a lot of Gen Zs who are between the ages of like 21 to like almost 30 still have to live at home with their parents because the cost of housing or let alone the rent prices on average is so fucking high. It's so high.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Let's keep going.
Look, again, I'm all for getting people into work, and I hate it when people are not working and they're draining off the system. And obviously you have this issue with somebody that's done well in life or somebody that's rich, but them people without them, the socialism side of things will be a lot worse off. So I think we need to encourage people to do well and to put more back into society rather than sitting back belly aching about we ain't got a job, we ain't got this, we haven't got this, we haven't got that. You know, it's out there. The work is out there, and unfortunately, you've got many people that are just prepared to sit back and take and not contribute.
Can I say, I think you consider things like the welfare state as just an example of socialism, which I would say it isn't. But the point is, today, under capitalism, that welfare state is being attacked. It's being mauled. In fact, the logic of capitalism means that they want to cut any aspects of the welfare that still exist to pay for militarism, because
I don't want to ruin it for anybody else, but is it just me or is that lady in the middle blinking a lot? She is like hardcore blinking over and over again. It's like distracting.
the ruling class, particularly across Europe and in the West, want to spend loads of money on the army so that they can continue their imperialist exploits all around the world. So you seem to think that people like socialism because they've had it too good for too long. It's the opposite. People like socialism because capitalism is producing horror. It's producing austerity in their own lives, and it's also producing horror in other parts of the world. And so that's why people are moving towards social state.
You're asking me a question and you're answering it for me. So you're wrong, basically. You're saying some of the things you're saying. I'm all for getting people into work. I'm all for helping people, but they have to help themselves. And the NHS system, of course, it needs much more money. But unless you get people that are prepared to come away from being a socialist and start going out there and creating a job and creating wealth, not all businesses and wealthy people are bad people, but majority I know are very good people, and they actually help to get things going. So I feel that so somehow you've got it in your mind that it's a terrible thing to be successful.
Okay, that's probably a good point for me to circle back to some of the points that Fiona made earlier that I said I would allow you to respond to, Charlie, because I want to talk specifically about billionaires and the ultra-rich, because there's no doubt we live in very contradictory times, as our debate this evening is evidence of. It doesn't just feel like the rich are getting richer, they actually are. An Oxfam report found that globally billionaire wealth grew by $2 trillion in 2024. And that is particularly troubling to some people because during that same time, according to the World Bank, the people living in poverty, that number barely moved. There are others, some leading economists, who have argued that billionaires are vital to the economy because they're innovators, they're employers, and they've revolutionised our societies and improved the way we live. So there's two sides to this very lucrative coin here. So Charlie, let me ask you, and also in response to what Fiona was saying a little bit earlier in our debate, should billionaires exist?
Of course. Yeah, of course it should. Yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, again, a billionaire is not a terrible word. I mean, it's a wonderful thing if you are a billionaire, and imagine how much you put back into society by becoming a billionaire.
Fiona,
Name it.
I'm just saying
Name
we gave the lady in the middle gives like this actual study talking about the billionaire wealth transfer, and he's just like, well, it's actually pretty nice if you're a billionaire. That's all he has. He just essentially is not arguing
that's literally
anything.
Where it ends.
Right?
That's literally where I just want to say so bad. It's like, yeah, that's pretty much the extent of it. It's just nice. Yeah, well, I can agree with you there. I'm sure it is. But, and also another thing he said, that being successful was so terrible. Again, he's putting words in her mouth. That is not what she's saying. Success, number one, is measured in many aspects, and not to mention is basically it has more in common with the word with the word of perfection. It's within the eyes of the beholder. I typically don't, when I think of success, I mean as someone who has met their personal goals, who is taking control of their lives. They have and maybe they have went through hell in their early stages of life, and they've had to endure and put more work and more effort in what they had to do in order to succeed and make themselves an independent person. That to me is success. It doesn't have to be a measurement of how much money they have. It's what they do and how they not only treat other the people around them, but how they treat themselves and how they view themselves.
Right.
That is what success is to me. It does. I mean, if you got money in your account, great. That's great. I'm not going to judge you or shame you because you got commas in your bank account. It's the fact that the the ultra wealthy are literally using their wealth to get whatever they want, no matter the cost of the lives and the destruction and the despair that it will cause other people. They don't care.
Yeah,
That's what makes these.
they're literally subverting democracy. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and they don't care. That's the most dangerous thing about them is they don't care. Billionaires are not dumb. They're clearly not dumb. They know damn well what they're doing. They know
right,
damn well what they're doing. They know exactly the consequences, the price, and everything that will happen, and just the overall consequences of their actions. They damn well know. It's just they don't care. It's
right,
not
Look at
caring.
the
right.
innovation, when you look at the employment that billionaires have been able to produce, if you look at someone like Bill Gates, the development of the desktop computer. I mean, he's a billionaire, but there's no doubt he's changed the way society works. People work, people can engage in education and the workforce. Is there a place for them in society?
No, I would say billionaires should not exist at all. But it's not just about them as individuals. Billionaires are a reflection of the capitalist system and the fact that it's dependent on the massive amounts of accumulation at one pole and absolute poverty, as you said, and degradation at the other pole. I mean, Charlie said it must be a wonderful thing to be a billionaire. Yeah, I'm sure it is. To be Jeff Bezos, I'm sure he has a lovely life. You know who doesn't have a lovely life is all of the workers who are exploited in Amazon warehouses across the world, who he tries to stop from organizing when they do to improve their conditions. His super wealth comes off the back of their super exploitation. That one thing you were saying earlier, the two things are related, the boss and the worker. Yeah, they are related. The boss can only exist off of the exploitation of the workers that the boss has. But I'm saying that workers could run those workplaces themselves because, of course, we need valuable things in society, valuable products, whether it's in technology or any other industry. But it's not just the innovation of one individual. Everyone knows that most products are the combined effort of many different people, of many different forms of work as well, and supply chains all over the world. Billionaires shouldn't exist because what they do is hold things back actually, and I think there's actually a fear growing in some billionaires. I mean, didn't we start this program with a quote from one of them talking about maybe capitalism isn't working for young people? There's a few billionaires out there who even say maybe we should be taxed a little bit more. You know why? Because they're scared of this mood, this revolutionary mood that's growing in society. And you look at some countries like Bangladesh, like Sri Lanka, like Nepal, where you're seeing revolutions take place against the super rich, against the corrupt. And I think in the West now, some of them are looking at that and are worried. They're worried that that mood of anger exists here as well, because people are thinking, why should anyone be able to have all of that wealth? They shouldn't. And it's a reflection of the system, I would say.
And Charlie, I mean, we're also seeing that in the capitalist capital in New York City. Should multimillionaires and billionaires be worried? Do you think there's a groundswell, like what Fiona is saying? Is the time up?
I don't think it's time up at all, and I think it's wrong to say that all bosses are exploiting their workers. I mean, you know, I'm sure it happens in a minority of them, but most bosses look after their workers. You know, I run a business for
No, they don't.
41 years before I sold it to the Americans, and you wouldn't be able to survive in the business if you exploited your workers. So to bring that in against successful.
That literally doesn't make any sense, because at the core, all profit is stolen
This
wages.
motherfucker never worked an actual, like, a legitimate,
I think he
job
did.
in his life.
I think he did, but
Are
he's
you-
just like so, he's lived a luxurious life for so long, and it's
That's
just
what I'm
kind of
saying.
like
Either
reinforced,
like,
his
really,
narrative.
have you been like an undercover boss or some shit like that? Like,
But
or something like that. Like, are you kidding me right now? No.
People, I
Like
think
I
it's just
mentioned
wrong.
before, like I said before, a lot of the times that I've left a job or I was terminated by my employer was because of the shit that they were doing, and then I stood up to them and did not agree to it because I knew it was wrong. Like,
right,
they were blaming me for shit that they had zero evidence of. They had no proof whatsoever. They were using assumptions. I stood up for myself. They fired me. And then they come to find out who actually was the one at fault. And I got unemployment. Really? You're going to sit there and tell me that I'm sucking off the system? Really? Are you shitting me right now? Most bosses look after their workers or they wouldn't be surviving. Yeah, because it's systemically rigged to look like that they are surviving when they're truly not. They're just killing them slowly, so that way people who are dumb enough to ignore the signs or ignorant enough to think otherwise to not see it. That's the reason why. Dude,
right.
he is very out of touch with the working class for sure. He is literally
Again,
he is no different than any other capitalist that we have ever that I have ever heard of discussed on this pod. He is no different whatsoever. None.
if you exploited your workers. So to bring that in against successful people, I think it's just wrong again. And I think, if I'm being honest, I think that you just have this in your mind that being a socialist is the right thing. I mean, what motivates you? What motivation do you have being a socialist? Well, what motivation have you got then? Is it that you want to go round and have an argument on an interview or a disagreement and prove that wealthy people are not no value, and the fact that we pay more tax than anybody? All I get from you is the idea that, so anybody that's prepared to create jobs and train people and put money back into the country, you seem to dislike. I mean, what do you think should happen then? Maybe you're that clever. Maybe you know the answer.
Fiona?
I think we need a revolution. I think we need a revolution against the billionaires and the whole of the capitalist system. What motivates me is supporting workers in their struggle against the capitalists and against the system that is producing horror, that's producing cuts and also genocide and war abroad. That's what motivates me. And the best thing, from my perspective, is that what I find when I'm having discussions with people, I've just done a university tour called Why You Should Be a Communist. I've met hundreds of students talking to them about their anger at the capitalist system and why I think socialism and communism is the alternative. More people today are open to these ideas than even 10 years ago. That mood is growing. It's growing in society. And I would even say, I mean, it's not because I'm doing nice speeches. The reason that people are thinking this way is because of the massive events that are happening in their lives
Right.
already, right? It's not me who's making their rent super high and their landlord is hiking it up every time their yearly contract goes up, right? It's not me who's raising the cost of all the food in Tesco or Sainsbury's or wherever they're trying to do their shopping. It's not me who's raised the cost of train travel in Britain, so it's hundreds of pounds just to go between different cities. That is the result of the capitalist system, the ruling class, and the bosses who are raking in off the back of everyone else's misery. That is creating socialists. That is creating communists. And as I said before, it's not about their personal feelings to any one individual. If anything, that would be good for the capitalist system, because then you could get rid of one individual at the top and that would change it all. But that's not enough. We're not after individuals. We're after the whole class basis of society itself. And that's what's got to be the focus, in my opinion.
Charlie, I want to ask you, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, why didn't you answer the question that I asked you instead of waffling on about what you just did?
She did
Repeat
answer
the
the
question.
question.
Then.
You avoided
Didn't I
the
answer
question.
it? I think you don't like my answers.
What is the motivation
Like
in
I
being a
said,
socialist?
he's
And you went
hearing.
on
He's
about
only hearing what he wants to hear.
Right.
He
She
only hears what he
clearly
wants to
just
hear.
answered the question and saying that she is in it for helping the working class in their struggle, right? That is a motivation. I'm going to go back a little bit.
you avoided
Didn't I
the
answer
question.
it? I think you don't like my answers.
What is the motivation in being a socialist? And you went on about.
I just told you it's my motivation in being a socialist is the liberation of the working class from the horrors of exploitation that capitalism produces, so that you don't have to go to work and hope that your boss is going to pay you a decent wage so that you can feed your family. It's so that you don't have to worry about that anxiety, so you've got a guaranteed place to live, there's guaranteed healthcare, that your life isn't down to the whims of the market and what it's going to produce in your life. That's my motivation as a socialist. It's to liberate ourselves from the. Can
I ask you a question? I'll just ask you a question. Do you go to work?
Yeah, I work for the RCP. This is my job. It's trying to build a revolutionary party to channel all of the anger that people feel against billionaires, against the capitalist system, and channel it into a force that can actually take it.
I won't employ you because I think you're a professional troublemaker.
Oh, no.
I don't think that you're helping the situation.
For you.
Yes. That's her goal, is to be employed by the likes of you. That is totally her goal.
She's
I don't think she cares on the fucking slightest.
She's like, damn it. So you're saying I ruined my job interview? Like, oh my God.
I think you are being honest.
You're a professional troublemaker. Rather than trying to all work together, you've got this thing that, everybody treats workers bad.
Oh my gosh, try to all work together.
Billionaires hate it when we work together. That's what we've been trying to fucking say this whole time. We have, and you guys have done literally everything in your power to make sure we don't unionize, because once the entire working class unionizes, you guys can't fucking stop us, because we outnumber you guys 100-1.
Yeah.
Even 1,000-1, I would argue. But the fact is, we have, and you guys stopped us because you would threaten people, their jobs, their lives. You would blackmail them. You would ruin their lives. Or sometimes, depending on whom the person was and how much say and hold that they had, you'd sometimes hire people to kill them.
Yeah, it's insane. I'm glad we got a chance to look over that video, because I'm just gonna call him a chud. That dude's just a chud. Where he's
clearly hearing only what he wants to hear, and he just twists her words around. Like, you didn't answer my question. What drives you to be a socialist, dude? I predicted her answer was going to be for the liberation of the working class, or because she just wants the right things to happen to people who have been screwed over royally for decades at a time, for decades, and the generations before us have been brainwashed and just hammered to their core that these companies, these big corporations, are good and they can't do no wrong because they're the ones that make all the good stuff, and they can be trusted. And then the thing with Ronald Reagan and the trickle down economics, that shit was, like we said in the last episode, it's a total freaking farce. It has been exploited to beyond measure. I think that's been well established. The trickle down economics doesn't work, especially because of the fact that when the people who have the said money to make the trickle down economics work has the discretion and the power to not do it, psychological perspective. If they know they can do it, and they know that there's no consequences, and they know that nobody will stop them because they can't, they're gonna keep fucking doing it.
So one thing
that is the reason why, like I said before, they are scared of people working together. I like how he's like, well, because you're just working against people. You're supposed to be working together. That's literally what being socialist
Right.
and unionizing is all about.
Right.
And your billionaire buddies have literally did everything in their power to stop that from happening.
So one
If you don't have
thing,
a problem with us banding together, then quit stopping us. Get out of our way.
one thing that I brought up to my buddy Johnny is that the one main thing I took out of that conversation is that essentially the guy on the right, the capitalist guy, he's just all idealistic. Like he really is only thinking on the basis of just ideas, and he's not assessing society whatsoever upon reality, like the material, conditions that society provides for people in general. And the thing that is just so apparent in that conversation is that the lady on the left, since she's, I'm assuming, read Marxism, which that's dialectical materialism, is the study that, is essentially the fancy word for Marxism. And what that means is essentially you're always assessing things based upon the material reality, not upon the foundation of just ideas or vibes. The guy on the right is just vibes, and the guy on the left is actual material reality. The guy on the right is essentially showing up to a gunfight barehanded, right? He has no weapon whatsoever to fight against those very valid criticisms of capitalism, looking at it from a materialist perspective. So what happens is since he has the power and the money, and his friends, etc., have the power and the money, they're going to suppress the people who actually know what they're talking about because of that power imbalance. This is why just the other day they voted in, I think, the House to pass something about like being anti, socialism is bad or something like that. The reason that they do that, is because they are beholden to the ruling class. And the ruling class does not want to essentially lose power over the grand system because they have they're treating it like their little pet project, right? So that they can do their little, billionaire, BS thing here and their billionaire BS thing there, making dick rockets and stuff like that. It's just absolutely ridiculous that we should even have complete and utter morons running the show. These people, the only thing they care about is just profit. They do not care about anyone else whatsoever, least, unless that person will somehow cut back on their bottom line. Right? That's the only way that they would ever, quote unquote, care about a person or, quote unquote, as he said, take care of their employees, is that, well, if I don't take care of my employees, which we're putting big quotes on that, how many employees have you, given enough money that they can essentially retire at the age of 45 or something like that? Probably zero, right? That would be taking care of your employees. How many employees do you employ in a particular position? Is it the bare minimum, or is it enough so that everybody could essentially, because everybody's considerably more productive than they have been, over previous generations, they can literally just kind of like go work 20 hours in a week or like a 25-hour week because all of the tasks that they need to accomplish are finished well within the period of time because you've got that many people on the payroll or whatever. This is what we're talking about. And there was another thing that I wanted to say, because I know that there's a lot of people that assume when we start talking about stuff like this that it's like propping up, say, the USSR, propping up like communist China or something like that, which, by the way, I saw a
No.
statistic today that there are actually more billionaires in China than there are in the United States today.
They
So
dude, they invented a charger cord that could almost charge almost any phone to full charge within 5 to 10 minutes, no matter the model.
yeah, but
Are you? Yeah, no. Yeah, I was gonna say something about that too. I'm like, okay, yeah, I do not agree with the USSR because they fell and dissolved for a reason. Because they shit the bed. They shit the bed.
yeah,
They allowed the people who ran their who ran their government at the time of their existence into the ground because they had too much power. Same thing with going, and the same thing is happening with China. They're even treating their own people like shit too. It's not just the US, it's not just the UK. It's basically any sovereign superpower that has billionaires, that allows that they in a government that allows the ruling class to put money in people's pockets to keep them hush hush, stay out of their way, let them do what they want. It doesn't matter what country it is. It's not just the United States. It is China too, just like you said. Even though that, yeah, there are a lot of differences in how China runs their society versus how America runs their society. But yet, however, the commonalities between the two are one and the same. And the
I,
thing is, and here's another good example. North Korea. While yes, North Korea is definitely 100% communist dictator because Kim Jong Un runs the country with an iron fist. However, though, the thing is, it's not a whole lot of different. There's still a ruling class there. Kim Jong Un, he gets, while his people, some people have to literally eat grass off the ground to get some form of nourishment,
yeah.
because either A, they are literally not allowed to have actual food because they're being punished for basically looking at a soldier the wrong way, or because they wore, or because they had a hairstyle that mimicked Kim Jong Un's, shit like that. And not only that, he has his own mansion, he has his personal subway station, he has his own supply of Swiss cheeses, fine wines, aged wines, a whole bunch of other shit, and a bunch of imported shit. But while at the same time, though, the North Korean citizens are not allowed to have any contact with the outside world, pretty much, including the media they consume. There's only two channels that they're allowed to have, and it's all 100% pure steroid injected roid rage North Korean propaganda.
So the similarity between all of those examples, so China, um, which we're not talking about present day China, but when Mao was, you know, raising China out of the, medieval age, and also Russia, and also the same case for North Korea. All of those, when they had their cultural revolutions, were primarily an agrarian society. They had no industry and they had very little education. So this is why, in fact, Marx and Engels specifically said in some of their writings, which I'm no scholar, but I do remember this factoid. They said that it would not rise, that, actual communism would not rise in Russia because of that reason. Because essentially, since they did not have this, general sense of education, um, and they were essentially primarily an agrarian class and didn't have any heavy industry, they were then forced to have a bureaucracy that would run that socialist system. And ultimately, additionally, because they had that bureaucracy, you are opening yourself to, um, corruption. And it's difficult to keep corruption from happening. I mean, we've already seen for how many hundreds of years has the United States Constitution been hailed as, this document, or the United States government being, you know um, less susceptible to corruption. Well, even it was, corrupted, uh, for different reasons. But the point is that, you're really setting yourself up to fail by having too much of a bureaucracy, which means then you have to have a case of a generally, well-educated working class that could technically, without a bureaucracy, just manage their own. And I don't really think that even with leaps and bounds in education from, for example, the Bolsheviks in Russia to today, sure, we have probably a higher literacy rate, I would think. There's probably some other, metrics in which, say specifically the United States is better, but probably even in the United States, if it had like a revolution, would then also have to have a bureaucracy. And that bureaucracy, once again, because they hold more centralized power than people who are not a part of the bureaucracy. And in fact, most of the time what happens is the most educated people become the bureaucrats, right? So engineers, doctors, scientists, things like that they know how the real world works. Architects, things like that, that know how the world works. They're the ones that get put in these bureaucracies. And if you don't have any protections built into your core document, your constitution or whatever, we just go round and round and round again. Like you said, you end up having a ruling class. Maybe it's not in that case, or not maybe. In that case, it wouldn't be a capitalist. It would be a bureaucrat, like a, kind of an authoritarian form of socialism or whatever, where the bureaucrats rule. And that's where I think that when we were talking about the other episode, this is not an easy thing to do, right? This is not like, okay, just, all right, Omega Line, we're just going to do a podcast and we're going to be the spark that ignites the revolution or whatever. That's not what we're saying here. That's at least not what I'm saying, or not the reason that I want to have these discussions on the podcast. I fully acknowledge that at some point people got to go out, touch grass, and talk to people. But at the same time, if there aren't, I think it's still at least a positive to at least have these conversations in an online space and throw these ideas out, because the more that people are exposed to these ideas, the less of this negative reaction that we're hoping to see in the long run. Maybe the first time somebody hears it, like, oh, Timu Sting over there, he's going to be shaking his head and all offended and calling her a professional troublemaker. But in 5 years, after he's heard that from 1,000 people over and over and over and over and over again, the reaction's going to be less and less,
a troublemaker.
less and less, because it's the same reason that, like drag queens read books to kids and stuff like that, is the more that people are exposed to these ideas that are not harmful, and in this case with socialism, is or has the potential to be a much more equitable system. That's what we're trying to go for, is just disseminating ideas and having discussions like over in the comments. Besides, you're a poopy head. We want more than that. But the one thing I was going to say there, I got sidetracked, is the gal on the left in that video. She, and that's kind of interesting that they did put them on right and left correctly.
Yeah, that I was like, was that that elaborate?
That was probably intentional. But the point is she mentioned something that isn't said enough. And I don't think it was in the clip that we discussed, but she made, I'm just paraphrasing here, something to the effect of, there's a lot of class rage out there. This is why Donald Trump and, quite frankly, Republicans often get elected, is because of this actual and legitimate class rage about shit just isn't going well, right? That people just say, I don't know exactly what is causing it to not go well, but shit ain't right. And then these people come around and say, well, I'm the one that's going to make it better or whatever. And in this case, what she's saying is that eventually in the long run, people are going to wisen up and find out that it is actually these billionaires, multi-billionaires especially, mega billionaires like Elon Musk and Bezos and really any billionaire. I'm not giving a pass for anybody. By the way, fuck Taylor Swift. But the point is like
Yeah.
those people are going to get the ire of an actual disenfranchised and fed up working class someday unless something gets done. It's not a threat, right? It's not me making a threat. This is just what's happens in history. It has happened numerous times in history. And if something is not done to go help with that, and the answer is just not more capitalism. It's not like and that guy, his only argument was essentially just lifting yourself up by your bootstraps. You just got to go work more jobs or whatever. That's not going to fix the problem here. It's a core fundamental issue with the system and equality, and it does not achieve justice. It does not achieve prosperity, and that ire is going to be pointed at them. So in my mind, I think that it is actually better to have these conversations and say, look, and she kept it, reemphasizing it over and over again. It's not like an ire against a single person, right? The ire needs to be pointed at the system that allows those people to do the things they do. Whether they're doing it for nefarious reasons or not is neither here nor there, in my mind, personally. I get that I have my own opinions of whether or not they're doing that on purpose or not. But the point is that really is neither here nor there, because if it wasn't that person, it would be another person, because the system itself allows that. If there was not a Donald Trump, there would have been a different Donald Trump, because the system is pushing the the ruling class to feel scared. They're afraid that when this all comes crashing down and we're the hyper-capitalist nation in the whole entire world, the most hyper-capitalist nation in the whole world, we're going to get freaking guillotined or whatever. And they're not wrong. And I think that fascism is the wrong answer to that, but they're going to do what they're going to do. And ultimately, whether that leads to, unfortunately, violence or some sort of a violent thing within that cultural revolution isn't on us. We're the ones just strictly saying, hey, this ain't working. We need to do something better. And if violence gets thrown at us because of that, then obviously we have to protect ourselves, but we're not the aggressors here. The people who are literally putting us in a vice, economically and politically, they are the threat. They are the ones making threats to our freedoms, to our way of life, and to our ultimate, comfort and our ability to even pass on to other generations. There's numerous people who wouldn't even think about having kids as a family, even if they wanted to have kids as a family, because they could never afford it in the United States. Better yet, own a house. Better yet, be able to, pay for a nice dinner or something like that occasionally. We couldn't even fathom those things in some cases. So I think that what the key thing here is that, number one, I'm not discussing a bloody revolution type of situation here. I think that's so far-fetched to just tell everybody to go grab their guns and start taking over the government or something like that. It would not end well. It would cause way worse problems in the long run. I'm talking about educating the working class, as many people as we could possibly reach, to know where or what their problem is, the problem of the working class, of their exploitation. Also know who is to blame for their essentially their ire, right? Who is making life worse for you? Making sure that that's not pointed at the LGBTQ community. Make sure that's not pointed at immigrants. Make sure that's not pointed at people across the ocean or whatever, in Gaza or whatever. That those people are not the problem. And in fact, I'd be willing to say within our lifetimes, they will never be the problem. Okay? That is the main point here, is to educate people and to have discussions. And if somebody disagrees and says, you know what, lady that came from 1,000 miles away and trekked with everything on her back, uh, somehow is the problem, then give me a material statistic. Give me what reality there is that disproves this whole entire thing, that it's not billionaires and it's somehow this person who immigrated, quote unquote, illegally from, Brazil or one of these South American countries or whatever. I challenge you to do that. And the reason I challenge you is because I know it's not. I know the data is out there, and the data says that person does not affect your life in any way, shape, or form. They're not taking your jobs. They're not taking, healthcare money. I mean, hell, actual citizens can't even get universal health care. So why do you think that an immigrant's going to get it? So that's the core thing here. And I think that the longer we do this, and if we stay consistent, we can really start having some good conversations. And even if this turns into something where we actually decide to have some form of organization or something like that, I would love for that. But we've got to start somewhere. And I think the starting place is conversation and educating ourselves using examples that we see in the world, like that video that we watched for, on counterpoints, which I'll put in the video description if you want to check out the whole video. You have any closing comments, Omega?
Yeah. Well, I kind of pretty much said my piece throughout the video, but I will say it's really astounding to me that people like him are still think that these minuscule little responses and the nitpicking and the twisting of the words and clearly only hearing what they want to hear is going to still work.
Yeah.
It may work for certain people still that truly don't know the whole scheme of things, or just truly are ignorant to the things that are going on, which is a lot of what's going on with the United States. We still have people believing that Robert F. Kennedy is this also wonderful miracle worker for the Health and Department of Human Services, because he's doing these things with anti-vaccinations and claiming that autism is caused by this, but yet at the same time he's also saying that autism is caused by circumcision or caused by the use of Tylenol. Like, and the guy has zero, and I mean zero, zero, none whatsoever credentials or anything
Right.
in terms of the knowledge of human anatomy, human physiology, psychology, just overall just scientific the science of medicine.
Right.
And not to mention, what he's also doing is he's now also resurrecting an ancient evil of making autism sound like it's a disease that needs to be cured or prevented.
Yeah, and I've said that for a long time. I think that the
And as
main
an
reason
autistic person,
they focus on
yeah,
that
and
because autism is a key, one of the key characteristics of autism is pushing back against authority.
oh yeah, yeah, we don't like being forced against our will. We don't. We don't. I sure as hell don't anyways. No, I know many autistic people that are very stubborn. That also have, like me, have very unhealthy distrust in authority, because the authorities have abused us.
Right.
They have mistreated us. They have manipulated us. They have deceived us. I have been deceived and manipulated, brainwashed even numerous times from my school, from religious organizations that maybe hate gay people, that maybe hate people that didn't think like me, when they were not the ones that never hurt me. It was them. It was their own kind that I was protecting were the ones that were hurting me. They were the ones that were trying to turn me into something that I was not. If anything, that when I first got exposed to LGBTQ members from my college, they actually taught me to embrace who I am. I am what I am now is because of them. So yeah, it just infuriates me. We worked and advocate and neurotypicals that have advocated for us have worked so hard to get us where we were, and now he's undoing all of the work. He's undoing all of that. He's making autistic people sound like that we're just freaking genetic cesspool mutants that are just that just need to be put down is what he's talking like, and that pisses me off. And this all circles back to, well, because he's rich too. He's a Kennedy. His dad what was a president too, and then also because he's been endorsed by Donald Trump, the current in-seat president, and he's in his pocket now, and he also sold out his own beliefs just to fit the status quo for the Trump administration. He used to be very pro-choice. Now he's pro-life all of a
Right.
sudden. Like, that's what infuriates me, is like people are so cowardly, they're so ignorant, they have no business being in power in certain, especially in places where what determines of how humans are protected and taken care of, especially those who literally do not have the means to defend themselves, whom I've worked with plenty of times. I've worked with many people who were underprivileged. I work with many people who have severe intellectual disabilities and severe mental illnesses, to the point where they literally do not have the capability to be on their own, and they get manipulated so much because freaking bastards like him think they can just talk over them and just manipulate them like they're little puppets, and then make money off of them until they're dead. Then they're no longer of use to them. They served their purpose. And quite frankly, I hate that infuriates me. I could have been in those people's shoes myself. The good thing is I had parents that raised me. I've had professional help, and my mom knew resources and how to find them to get me where I need to be. That's the only reason why. Because otherwise, I don't think I would have been. Had I received the stuff that I did and the education that I do have, I don't think I would be here. I truly don't. Because especially now, given that we're now just basically just one step at a time going towards, from what was supposed to be a democratic, free individualism, pro-individualism nation, to now we're heading towards basically a fascist society where only white Christian nationalists have ultimate privileges and authority, especially if they have more money, versus the average Joe, especially if they're of color. I just it just it's mm,
Working
mm.
class deserves better, you know?
Absolutely.
Well, we had a
It,
good episode, I think, this time. We really, really got to the meat and potatoes of why it is that we think that, like, a lot of these Democrats, Republicans, they're just out of touch. They're no different than that guy over there that just kept saying that people just need to work more or work harder or lift yourself up by your bootstraps. They don't understand what's going on, or they do, and they're purposely misrepresenting it, right? So just something to think about. If this is content that you like, please hit that subscribe button. Let us know what you think in the comments. Like the video if this is something you like, and we will catch you on the next one.